So some of you are aware that I posted recently a community post that had a poll in it, and I asked you guys what direction you wanted my channel to go into the near future, and the UK / European / culture / history won that poll. So that's what we're doing today. We're doing some European history. I guess it could also be military history as well. But why the Spanish Civil War, you ask? Well, it is because of this guy. CJ Tiano has been a subscriber on my channel ever since December 4th, 2020, which is a little less than 2 weeks after I started my channel. So he's been around since basically the beginning. He's been watching my videos since then and commenting on them. I see him in the comments a lot. And his most popular comment is this one: will you please watch the Spanish Civil War by Future History? Well, not only do I want to learn more about it, but CJ, I want to show my appreciation to you for sticking around all of this time, and we are going to learn about the Spanish Civil War today. Now, we haven't actually done a whole lot with Spain on this channel. The only thing I can actually recall about Spain is when we were in the Napoleonic Wars, and down in Spain we saw Napoleon invade Spain. We saw the Spanish guerrillas fighting against him. The British came in, the Portuguese came in and helped them out. They eventually drove Napoleon back into France. But other than that, we really haven't done much on Spain at all. And also, I have not really learned much about Spanish history. Well, probably not anything really. I know that comes as a shock to all of you. And the only things that I know about Spain are, I know where it is. I know Madrid is the capital. I know they had the Olympics there back in the 90s in Barcelona. I know that Spain had an empire at one point and they colonized a lot of South America, Central America, and parts of North America. They owned Florida and sold it to us eventually. And I think St. Augustine in Florida, is it St. Augustine? Is like the oldest city that was founded by Europeans in North America, or something along those lines. So I've got a lot to gain from watching this video. We're going to fill in some of my knowledge gaps about Spain. Now, when it comes to the Civil War in Spain, I have no idea when it happened, who the factions were, why it happened. So before we watch this video, I do want to get a little bit of context for that. So we're going to check some of that out. So I'm going to look up the Spanish Civil War. Okay, the Spanish Civil War was a civil war in Spain, fought from 1936 to 1939. Okay, so it's way more modern than I thought. For some reason, I had it in my head that it happened like 200 years ago. Republicans loyal to the left-leaning Popular Front government of the Second Spanish Republic. See, that's weird to me because over here in the US, Republicans are on the right generally. An alliance with anarchists of the communists and syndicalists, not syndicalists, fought against a revolution by the nationalists, an alliance of phalangists, monarchists, conservatives, and traditionalists. Okay, there are a lot of different groups in this war, led by a military group among whom General Francisco Franco soon achieved a preponderant role. During the political climate of the time, the war was viewed as a class struggle, a religious struggle, a struggle between dictatorship and republican democracy, between revolution and counter-revolution, between fascism and communism. So there are also a lot of reasons it was fought. Wow. According to Cloud Bowers, the U.S. ambassador to Spain during the war, it was a dress rehearsal for World War II. I don't know what he means by that. Nationalists won the war and it was ended in 1939 and ruled by Spain until Franco's death in November 1975. Okay, so this is actually fairly recent history then. Okay, so good to have a little bit of context going into this. Again, yeah, that kind of took me by surprise. I didn't know that it happened this recently, just like right prior to World War II. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where Spain was going into World War II at this point. A lot of different factions and groups in that. I hope this video makes it a little more simplistic so that I can kind of wrap my head around that, because yeah, that's a lot to take in. Alright, so I guess let's go ahead and check out the Spanish Civil War.
A war of ideology. A war that introduced revolutionary technologies and tactics. A war with such human and societal cost, it would never be forgotten. No, the other one. There you go.
Oh, okay. It's like, that looked like Hitler and Mussolini. This was my first feature history video on this channel too, so hope it's good.
Hello and welcome to Feature History, featuring the Spanish Civil War. It was a war that caught the eyes of politicians, media and creatives around the world. What began as the Spaniards' War was co-opted by fascists and communists of the world seeking to show the merit of their might. A proto-Cold War, if you will. The seeds of this war were planted prior to the reigns of communism and fascism. They were planted in the 19th century. If you'd like to get a better idea of the bigger picture, you can check out Sweeney's video on the history of Spain. Also do that because I told you to. Moving on, the 19th century was a turbulent time for Spain. Opposition to the monarchy resulted in pushes for constitutional rights, liberalism, and even a short-lived republic. Combined with the destruction of the empire by the US and revolutionaries, the Spanish state was weakened and the populace disunified.
So we destroyed the Spanish Empire? Huh. Okay, so this is a part of US history I apparently do not know very much about. Also, this looks like Teddy Roosevelt here in this picture wearing his slouch hat. Thank you, Aussies, for letting me know what that was. Okay, so obviously the empire was over here in the Americas, so I guess it stands to reason. There was a Spanish-American War that happened around the turn of the late 1800s. Again, it's kind of like the War of 1812. I know I studied it in school, but I just don't remember anything about it. Also, I think the American Navy had something around this time called the Great White Fleet, and they would like go around the world trying to show off, basically, if I remember right. I wonder if that has something to do with this as well. And I know that we also invaded parts of Mexico out west and took that over, so I know that was part of the Spanish Empire. I guess we'll have to do another video on the Spanish-American War and learn more about that. Also, what was this? Yeah, so like when they were talking about the monarchy here, I just had flashes to like the French Revolution. It seemed to be very similar. A lot of this stuff was happening around that time, except they're just a little bit behind France, I guess, in this respect.
Alfonso XIII, King of Spain, would launch a disastrous war against Morocco in the 1920s. This would lose him the majority support of his army, so we could just sprinkle that on top of the irritated civilians. Alfonso recognized this and so just up and left the country in 1931. The local government proclaimed itself the Second Republic, headed by Niceto Alcalá Zamora. Niceto and his committee promised change, a step into the 20th century, trade unions, land reform, secularization, women's liberation, and autonomy for Catalonia and the Basque Country. So many revolutionary ideas at once left the right wing feeling alienated. The actual introduction of these ideas was slow. Painfully slow. Every single change left the right more concerned and the left further disappointed. Add a Great Depression and the changes became slower. The anarchist confederation named Confederación Nacional del Trabajo, or just CNT if you're not a show-off, would rally strikes, and when the Republican government cracked down, they
That looked like the Cartoon Network logo. It's pretty funny.
alienated the far left. To protest, the CNT refused to participate in the 1933 general election, which, funnily enough, led to a result they were unhappy with. The right-wing Catholic conservative Seda Party, under José María Gil Robles y they'll piss off, won a majority of the seats. The reforms that actually did get done were beginning to be reversed, and the military and cabinet began to be purged of leftists. The CNT retaliated in 1934 when they rallied up anarchists and communists alike to rise up in Asturias. The young General Francisco Franco was sent in and commanded the talented Army of Africa to crush the revolution. The streets turned to battlefields. The workers were eventually defeated and suffered brutal reprisals against them. The gruesome scene foreshadowed the shape of things to come. The bitter tale sparked outrage.
Okay, so we've seen Morocco and Africa here, so what is Spain's connection with Africa? Did they colonize parts of Africa? Is that why they're there? I didn't know that there was that connection.
Against them. The gruesome scene foreshadowed the shape of things to come. The bitter tale sparked outrage and helped unify the left. Communists, anarchists, socialists, and plain old liberals realized to combat the right they would have to stand together. The Popular Front was formed. Reactions from the right intensified as well. Some believed a Jewish Bolshevik conspiracy was afoot to spread communism. The fascist Falange Party was formed by José Antonio Primo de Rivera. Politics was getting very violent and partisan very quickly. You couldn't just disagree with someone anymore, you had to silence them. The 1936 general
That's happening over here in the US, actually, and I don't like it. I wish people would chill out.
elections would result in a narrow Popular Front victory, leaving the government in favour of the left. President Niceto would be exchanged in favour of Manuel Azaña. Primo de Rivera was arrested and the military was reorganised in an attempt to suppress chances of a coup. José Sanjurjo, a man who attempted a coup in 1932, began conspiring another. He made deals with monarchists, traditionalists, fascists, nationalists, anyone and everything right-wing.
Oh
The
my
warnings
gosh.
of disloyalty were popping up left, right and centre, sending the government into a tizzy. On the night of July 12th, things went from bad to worse. Falange gunmen shot down a socialist police officer in the capital of Madrid. The police scattered out to find and arrest anyone even slightly related. They'd asked the monarchist, Jose Calvo Sotelo, to come down to the station with them.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different factions here. It's hard to like keep track of who believes in what and what side they're on. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm getting the overall picture here, so that's the most important thing, but man.
And slightly related. They'd asked the monarchist, Jose Calvo Sotelo, to come down to the station with them. A station he wouldn't reach. These killings made it clear this would not end politically. The coup was ready and the government was not. The people demanded to be armed, yet the government did not wish to do so as to admit they'd lost control. Seeing as they'd lost control, the people armed themselves.
I guess that's one reason why we have the Second Amendment over here in the US. It's really interesting. I'm seeing a lot of parallels between the United States and Spain here in this video. Not only with like the political climate, left versus right, but also the arming themselves. And also the guerrillas in Spain during the Napoleonic Wars also reminded me of the United States a little bit in that respect. So I wonder, like, I don't know what gun laws are like over in Spain, but I'm getting the idea from these videos that maybe they're a little more similar to what the United States has, or at least they used to be. I don't know anymore. I'm not going to get into a debate about guns and Second Amendment. That's not the point of my comments. I'm just drawing some comparisons here.
A military coup launched in Morocco under Franco's command. Generals across Spain would rise up in every city. The police would reluctantly work with the leftists. This cooperation would result in the coup's miscarriage. Cities across the Republic would either fall or not, beginning to draw the front lines to a new bloody civil war. This would be a line between the Nationalists and the Republicans. The Nationalists took Seville, Castile and Leon, but the government held on to Valencia, Barcelona and most importantly, Madrid. The botched coup became drawn out. Soldier or civilian, man or woman, you were fighting. Whether that fight be one of tyranny versus freedom or righteous Christians versus godless communists. The scene was quite surreal. You'd wake up, eat breakfast, fight on the front lines, and then be home for dinner and bed. There was a darker side as well. Nationalists
Weird.
would methodically execute any suspected of dissent, and the leftist Republicans took it upon themselves to destroy any person or thing that represented the old ways. They took this as an opportunity to instate their own revolution. This would create some tension within the Republican side. The government wished only to survive, but communists and anarchists wished to instate their ideas of a utopia in the disorder. Their only common interest was
Why do I feel like I'm looking at a Mercedes-Benz logo and a Cartoon Network logo right now? Maybe that's on purpose.
anarchists wished to instate their ideas of a utopia in the disorder. Their only common interest was hatred, nationalists. For those nationalists, the death of their mastermind in a plane crash would throw things a bit out of whack. A junta was established. Senior General Miguel Carboneas to head it. This was, very tough.
What's a junta? I've never heard that term before. Well, maybe I have, but I'm not sure what it is though. Sorry I keep pausing it so much. There's a lot of questions coming to mind in this video.
A junta was established. Senior General Miguel Carboneas to head it. This was, very temporary. Stepping back for a moment, the sides seemed fairly even. The nationalist trump card was their disciplined army of Africa currently in Morocco. So how would they get the army into Spain proper? With Italian and German transports, of course. Their rebellion had the support of Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and to a degree, Portugal. It would start as supplies, but it would escalate to volunteers as the war progressed. Franco's Army of Africa would arrive in Seville and push north towards Madrid, cutting through enemy territory and brutally crushing them in the Battle of Mérida in August. The nationalist territory was connected, and Franco rewarded with the title Commander-in-Chief. When he rescued his allies in the siege of Alcazar, that title would be bumped up to Caudillo, the unquestionable military head. It would be Franco's work that unified the many elements of the nationalists. The Republicans lacked this unity. The old government's cabinet would be thrown out in favour of the communist one. The communists attempted to unify the Republic in their own image. The anarchists viewed it as an affront to their revolution. Madrid would come under siege in November, and the new government retreated to Valencia. Only the passionate men and women remained to fight, adamant that the nationalists would not pass. The fervour attracted those from all around the globe to come to Spain and fight for these ideas. It also attracted the Soviet Union, who began sending aid of their own. Britain and France were anxious about tossing their hat into this quickly becoming proxy war, and so agreed to a pact of non-intervention. Regardless, Madrid stood, unyielding for years. The nationalists held siege, but diverted forces to try and take everything around Madrid. They spread across the south, and in 1937 marched into the isolated Basque country. This region would become famously subject to the bombers of the Luftwaffe. The Republicans would remain firmly on the back foot after this defeat. They attempted some offensive in 1938, but every 10 meters gained would cost them 10 gallons in blood. Franco chased the Republicans back across the north, pushing them to the sea and cutting their territory in two. The Republicans fought back in the Battle of Ebro, but to no avail. Perhaps they could hold out until the inevitable World War broke out, and then they'd have the support of the Allies, certainly. Well, Britain and France's appeasement of Hitler would lay a nice consistent shit on that idea. Morale shattered, they retreated. The war was decided. Now the only thing left was to lose. 1939 dawned on an invasion into Catalonia, the anarchist homeland. Barcelona fell on January 26. In Madrid, the Republicans could still not agree. Anarchist and communist hostilities spilt out over the peace treaty. A civil war broke out within a civil war. The anarchist Segismundo Casado threw out communist Juan Negrin and began negotiations on the behalf of the Republic, but Franco accepted nothing less than unconditional surrender. Madrid fell on March 26, and Franco announced victory on April 1st, but no, it wasn't a full. Some Republicans were lucky. They escaped or somehow hid. A lot did not, dying by either their own hand or a soldier's. Franco, as the absolute dictator, kept in check the many factions he had once unified as nationalists. He had attempted to negotiate with them, but if pressed he had no qualms purging them. The country was centralized under him. Tradition and religion held supreme. The economy was rebuilt and resurged at the expense of the worker. The monarchy was revived in 1947. Franco, of course, regent for life. What, did you think he was going to step down? He selected his heir as Juan Carlos de Bourbon in 1969, and upon Franco's death and
Carlos de Bourbon.
He selected his heir as Juan Carlos de Bourbon in 19...
Okay, so I have recently learned about the Bourbon kings in France during the Napoleonic Wars. Some of you guys have commented about them also in the comments on those videos. Is this related to them at all? I mean, because they're like right there. Like, I think you guys said that the Bourbon kings were like in southern France, which would be really close, you know, much closer to Spain. So is there a connection between this guy? I don't know. Like, that doesn't really make sense, though. I don't know, maybe it does. You guys are gonna have to explain to me. Also, the monarchy was... How did that happen? The monarchy came back into fashion, I guess, after they had tried to get rid of it previously. Oh my gosh. Europe is a different beast. So different from the United States. Americans do not understand monarchies and all of this stuff and how all of that works, because we just don't have that over here. Oh my gosh. It's a lot to wrap my head around.
In 1969, and upon Franco's death in 1975, Juan Carlos I ascended to the throne. The king would reform Spain, reviving democracy and modernizing the country. The consequences of the Civil War no longer lingered so heavily over everyone. Mourning could finally begin. The sorrow and sheer human cost of the war are still deeply remembered and felt to this day, and with that sorrow continues some hatred. The sometimes violent division between left and right remains, not only in Spain, but the world. It's just too easy to call your opponent a dangerous communist or corrupting fascist. So we could attempt to discuss policy, debate ethics, and reach some kind of compromise, or you could just punch someone in the face because he's a Nazi, I swears it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that last little bit that they showed right there with, I guess it was a protester who, you know, hit that guy. Stuff like that's been happening, especially in the past couple of years here in the States, and it's a little worrying, honestly. I mean, I don't think we are on the brink of a civil war or anything. I think most Americans don't want anything to do with the Civil War. But there is that, you know, tension between the right and the left here, and it's a little scary to kind of see what it can evolve into. So I hope we don't go down that road over here in the States. Also, there are just a lot of really contradictions in this video that don't make sense to my American brain. For instance, the Republicans teamed up with the communists to fight against the nationalists in this. To Americans, republics and communism are just completely opposite of each other because we're like a republic and we consider ourselves the opposite of a communist nation. So the thought of them like going together is just really, really strange. I know that there's like, you know, is it the Democratic Nationalist, I don't know, something Republic of North Korea. So they call themselves a republic too, but they're basically a communist country. I don't understand how that works. I've never understood why like republics can call themselves communists at the same time. Like again, to Americans, the two don't go together. Also, it's really interesting to me that the monarchy came back into power around the mid-20th century and re-established democracy. Again, that's another contradiction to Americans. Americans do not equate democracy with monarchy. So the fact that that was happening is also really hard for me to wrap my head around. Obviously, over in Europe and other parts of the world, these terms may be completely different. Like, they may mean different things over in Europe. So it's just so different. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I'm just meaning it's different. The way you guys think about these terms, these things over there is different. Like, the UK has a monarchy and they're also a democracy. Spain apparently is kind of the same way. I don't know. Do you guys have a king now? I'm gonna have to look this up. Okay, Spain government. The government of Spain is the central government, which leads the executive branch in the general state administration of the Kingdom of Spain. Wait, what? Spain is a kingdom appointed by a monarch. Monarchy of Spain, constitutionally referred to as the Crown, is a constitutional institution and the highest office of Spain. So do you guys have a monarch? You have a king? Okay, so I thought you guys had a government like France or the UK or something, but okay, you have a prime minister. So this is looking more like the UK to me. Like, you guys have a monarch and a prime minister and I guess a cabinet. And down here, constitution, crown, executive, legislature, just, yeah, I don't know. Like, the UK government is weird to Americans because, again, like, we do not equate monarchies with democracy at all, or republics, but that's just not the way it is over in Europe, it looks like. You guys, I guess because you guys have a history of monarchs, you've kind of just like integrated that in with more modern like democracies in a way. It's just, like I said, it's so different. Hard for me to wrap my head around. I don't know, maybe you guys can clarify some of this down in the comments for me. Interesting, I had no idea Spain had a king. Who is the king? Spanish? Because it's not listing the king here. Oh, Felipe the Sixth. Huh. Okay, I feel really stupid for not knowing any of this. Okay, wow. Well, not only has this video opened my eyes to the Spanish Civil War, it's opened my eyes to Spain in general and your system of government, because I had absolutely no idea about any of this. This is eye-opening, I guess. It's also really interesting to me that, you know, one thing I have learned in all of these videos that I've done, especially the French Revolution, Napoleonic Wars, and now this one, is just how like volatile politics and government power is over in Europe. You know, in the United States, we've pretty much had the same government ever since we were founded. There have been some, you know, constitutional amendments here or there to change a little, to tweak things a little bit. And of course, we do have a different president every few years, but the system of government stays the same. Presidents may introduce, you know, different policies and stuff, but by and large, it's a fairly stable system that we haven't really diverged from in 200 plus years. So kind of growing up and being from a country like that, and then just seeing all of the upheaval in these European countries, it's just like like I said, it's a different world. It's a completely different world to me. And again, not in a bad way. I want to learn all of this stuff because I'm just kind of oblivious to it. I think most Americans are just oblivious to a lot of this stuff unless they've taken time to study the history of all of this, or they paid attention in history class. Like I apparently didn't do. Yeah, and also I'd be interested in knowing, if you guys are from Spain, how do you guys feel the after effects of the Spanish Civil War today? You know, how does that affect your lives? Does it affect your lives at all? He also mentioned in here that the Spanish Civil War was like a technological revolution in a sense too, but I don't know. He was kind of like jokingly making references to World War II at the same time, so maybe that's not true. But if that is true, what were those kind of like technological advances in the Spanish Civil War? Did they kind of bleed into World War II then at that point? And my goodness, speaking of World War II, that happened in 1939, like right after all of this happened, so the poor Spanish, just, they did not get a break at all from war, did they? Well, thank you CJ very much for suggesting this video. I learned a lot in this, so a little drop of European history knowledge into my vast bucket that's mostly empty. So Roger and I would like to thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you hit the like and the subscribe button. I also have some social media if you are interested in, you know, following me there. Check out my Facebook group though. I have a page and a group, but the group is where all of the fun discussion happens. We got a lot more videos like this coming your way in the near future, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And Roger and I will see you guys next time.